welcome to our channel. Eva, still in her gorgeous dress from the night before, couldn't wait any longer. Nicole didn't need time to prepare for the encounter, and Eva couldn't justify or avoid it, especially when all the pent-up emotions of the past few days seemed ready to explode. However, she didn't let herself be caught up in blind judgment. With terrifying clarity, Nicole bluntly asserted that if anyone was responsible for this rift, it wasn't Eva. She makes it clear that the fault lies with Ted, the man she trusted, who had only recently met Eva through Leslie, and yet had let himself into an inexcusable emotional mess. Nicole doesn't turn a blind eye, but she's rational enough to understand what the real cause of the breakdown is. Not long after, Danny shows up, carrying a strange but symbolic mix of comfort. A box of chocolates, some bubble bath, and a teddy bear named Blinky. The atmosphere in the room becomes even more tense as Danny makes her attitude toward Eva clear. And while that didn't erase the hurt, it did make a clear distinction between Ted and Bill. For Bill, what had happened was just part of a long series of deliberate lies, while for Ted, it was probably a weakness, an inner confusion. Nicole paused for a moment, then admitted that it had all happened so suddenly and so horribly that it had left her frozen. As if her mind had frozen and she couldn't think clearly. She was frozen, a state of horror and helplessness that not everyone could understand. Elsewhere, as the sky was getting dark, Ted went to see Leslie. He had come to her house not to fight, but to find something in the chaos. He faced Leslie not with anger but with exhaustion and confusion. He thanked her, sincerely, for letting him know Eva, even though the price was a series of wounds that were difficult to heal. In that moment of confrontation, Ted no longer blamed or asked for forgiveness. He admitted that his biggest mistake was not loving Eva, but letting Leslie, who had accompanied him, shared with him, sacrificed for him, leave his life. He missed her, seriously. But Leslie did not soften. She held her ground and continued to carry out her plan. When Ted left, she returned to the role of the leader. She forced Eva to leave the house. Made her pack her bags while not sparing her sarcasm. Leslie made Eva feel like a cheap consolation prize, an unwelcome alternative, a reluctant choice for a man caught between two worlds. When the bags were packed, Eva could no longer contain her emotions. She burst into tears, not just because she was being kicked out of the house, but because she felt like she was being ripped apart from the inside. Everything she had ever hoped for, believed in, dreamed of was shattered at once. She no longer knew who she was amid the fragments. Meanwhile, at the Dupree mansion, a lavish space that always contained hidden discussions, Anita and Vernon sat across from each other, discussing what was going on. Ted's name was mentioned again, along with Bill's, who was once considered a pillar, now a controversial shadow in the family. They discuss politics, secret alliances, and especially the impact this whole affair will have on the family's reputation. Chelsea suddenly appears in the middle of the conversation, carrying a deep suspicion. A hunch that Bill, the father she once respected, may be pulling the strings. The atmosphere becomes tense as Claude and Anita simultaneously examine their past choices. They both realize that, intentionally or not, they have stepped into an ethical gray area by helping Bill arrange Leslie's relationship with Ted. Each of them has crossed a line they once swore they would never cross. Repentance is no longer enough to erase the consequences. After all, Eva fell into a state of emptiness and uncertainty. She could not return to Leslie, there was no place for her. So she decided to go to the hotel where Ted was staying, carrying all her doubts, hurt and a little bit of fragile hope. Standing in front of Ted, she did not hide anything. She confessed that, when she started to be close to Leslie, it was not just a simple relationship. Deep inside, she wanted to use Leslie to find her father. It was part of her instinct, part of her desire. She did not say it as an excuse but as a truth she needed to release from her heart. Ted listened without interrupting. Although his mood was still confused, he realized that Eva was not completely a third-party destroyer. She was also a victim in the complicated game of adults, caught up in calculations, prejudices, and unnamed emotions. Ted did not promise anything great. He offered to help Eva find temporary lodging at a hotel, and then, if she wanted, he could arrange for her own apartment so she could start fresh. For him. But with actions, little by little, day by day. It wasn't the end, but a new beginning for a relationship that had been battered by storms.